Hi, and welcome to the second video in our PowerShell Mongo series. In the last video, we saw how to set up our MongoDB and also how to install the MongoDBC module and also kind of quickly go over some of the commandlets just to quickly select a database, select a collection, and then also insert and remove data from a collection. In this video, we're actually going to be taking a look at how we can create and remove databases and collections, because that's going to be really important, because right now all we have is the sample database and the sample collections. But of course, we want to make our own collection and our own database to be able to kind of create our own projects and move on. Now, one thing that you're going to notice with the MDBC module is that there is no Add MDBC Database or New MDBC Database. So let's actually quickly just go ahead and let's take a look at what the get command output gets us. So if we do get command dash module MDBC, we're going to get a bunch of commandlets back. But if we actually go through them, we can see add MDBC collection, add MDBC data, the connect, export. We can get MDBC database. We can import MDC data. We can invoke an MDBC command. We can do new MDBC data. We can also remove MDBC collection and remove MDBC data, but we don't have any Add MDBC database like we do for Add MDBC collection. So this becomes a problem on how can we create a MDC database when there is no modules for that. Luckily, there is a very easy workaround on how we can actually create that with PowerShell. But first, let's just go to our web console here and let's just see we have one database, one collection, 6 collections. Let's just refresh that. We can still see that that's what we have. We only have our sample mflix database with our 6 collections. So let's go ahead and let's actually get started on creating a new database and a new collection. So we already have the code here to connect to our MDBC environment. I'm not going to really repeat that. This is covered in the first video, but basically all we're doing is we're importing our credentials from our CLI XML file and then connecting it using the connection string that you can easily get from the overview pane. If you go to the overview pane here and then hit connect and then hit drivers, it is just this connection string, and then we've just replaced this little section of DB password with our password to our environment. But I highly suggest, if you haven't watched that first video, to definitely watch that video, because that will set up the entire environment that we're in right now. And now we're just going a little bit further and creating that database and creating those collections. So let's go ahead and let's get started here. So the first thing we're going to really want to do is just go see what databases we have. So we've already seen that command in the last video. That is just get MDBC database. So let's go ahead and let's see that here. So here we can actually see that we do get back our sample mflix, and then we have an admin and a local databases, which we're not going to be using those. Those are purely for Mongo. So one of the things that you can find online is MongoDB has a command called use database name, and that will automatically create your database. Now, as we remember from the first video, to select our database, all we did was we had DB here as a variable, and then we just selected a name and then put the test. We're just going to put test DB here. If we run this here, we go and refresh our MongoDB dashboard here, you're going to see that there's no databases that were created. So it doesn't seem to really work the same way. But what we can actually do is if we add a new collection in the adding a collection, you can also specify a database, and that will actually create your Mongo database at the same time. So let's actually go and just quickly take a look at how that looks like here. So let's go ahead, let's just remove this line because we won't really need this line at all. And let's go ahead and let's do add MDBC collection. And we're going to have a name here. And let's just call it test collection. So we'll know right away if it's created at the right spot. We'll have name test collection. And then we're going to have a database here. Now, what I usually like to do in this case is I like to do a variable wrapper here. And then get MDBC database, just like we did in that previous line. And then put a name here. And let's go and let's put a name of test DB here. And let's go ahead and let's run this line. I'm just going to minimize shrink the code a little bit. You guys should still be able to read that. And then I'll zoom back in, but that is the whole line. So we have add -MDBC collection, name test collection, database, and then we do our get -MDBC database, name test DB. So let's go ahead and let's run that here. And let's refresh our Mongo. And here we can actually see databases is now 2, collections is now 7. Let me just zoom in for you guys here so you guys can actually see that. And if we scroll down, we can actually see our test DB here. And if we expand that, we can see our test collection. So here you also get a really good idea of this is our database, this is our collection. Of course, there's nothing in there. We've just created them, but that is the perfect start. That's where we need to start. We need to start by creating them, and then we can start using them. Now, of course, I don't really want to use the words test DB and test collection. So let's go ahead and let's practice removing that, because that is also a very important part. What if we create something that we don't necessarily need? And let's also create a collection in our sample mflix data just to see what that looks like. So let's go ahead and let's just start by first creating the collection in our sample mflix data. Now, what we would typically do if we're manipulating a specific database like we saw in the first video is create a variable. I like to call it DB for database. And all we're going to do is DB equals get MDBC database name. We're going to select sample underscore mflix. If we go ahead and we run that here, and we're just going to check what is in our $DB, we can see that we do have the proper database there. So that looks very good. And now let's go ahead and let's do a add MDBC collection. We're going to put a name here, and we're going to put the name of test jacked sample just to make it a little bit different. And then we're going to make a database here, and we're going to reference our DB variable. And let's go ahead and let's run these 2 lines here. And let's go ahead and let's refresh our MongoDB dashboard. We can see here, databases is now 2, collections is now 8. And if we scroll down in our sample mflix, we can now see our test jacked sample. Now let's go ahead and let's actually remove these now. Now I can just click on the garbage disposal here, and that will get rid of it. But of course, we want to do everything through PowerShell here. So let's go back to our Visual Studio Code, and let's go ahead and let's remove this. So one thing that you might be tempted to do is we have all of our names here. So let's go ahead and let's remove the one from our sample database first. So let's go remove MDBC collection name, and let's just write test jacked sample. Now I'm doing this on purpose. We're going to see that this is actually not going to work. So if we try to run this here, you're not going to get an error or anything. So be aware that when you're running these, and if nothing happens, you're not going to get an error. So if we actually go back here, database is 2.8. Let's refresh. We still have 2.8. And if we look at our sample mflix, we still have our test jacked sample. And that is because Mongo is case sensitive. So you will have to do test jacked sample the exact same way you wrote it when you created it. So one of the good things to probably do, now of course this is completely up to you. Let's just create a variable called collection. You would do get MDBC collection name. And once again here, you still really want to use your case sensitivity here. Sample. And this way you can always check to see if a collection comes back. And we can see that our collection did come back. So that's always good. It's a good way to like just make sure that everything is going to work. And then all we're going to do is we're going to remove our MDBC collection. And if we go back and we refresh that now, we're going to see that we have 2 databases and 7 collections. And if we open up our sample mflix, our test jacked sample is now gone. So now let's go ahead and let's remove the test collection and the test DB. Now this we can actually do in one go. We don't have to remove the collection and then remove the database. We can actually just go ahead and remove the database here. So we can do remove MDBC database. And we're going to do name. And we are going to do test DB. Because once again, we need to make sure that we are using the correct nomenclature that we used. So the uppercases, it is case sensitive. So we need to make sure that we typed it in properly. Let's run that command here. Let's refresh our MongoDB overview dashboard. And we can see databases is now 1, collections is 6. So we are right back to where we were with just our sample data. So now we know how to create and how to remove databases and collections from our MongoDB session or environment that we have set up here. So that is really it for this video. Now you guys know how to do that. You guys can practice creating databases, creating collections. You already know how to add data to the collection as well. So you guys can practice that with the first video. And then in the next video, we can actually get started, create our collection that we really want, create our database that we really want, and start manipulating some data, updating some data, deleting some data as we see fit. Hopefully you guys liked this video. If you guys would like to see anything specific with MongoDB or the MDBC module, please let me know in the comments down below. If you guys liked this video, hit the like, hit that subscribe button, and also be sure to hit that notification bell to be notified when that next video comes out. And I will see you guys on the next video.